Yep.
Got this.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, there's that. And let me look at your levels.
Hello everyone. My wife is in Cambodia now, no longer Mexico. Weird thing with long story, but
Okay, I think we're good. I think we're
sweet.
Good. And no, we are live. Awesome.
Dope.
All right, I'll intro Biden.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
All right, recording in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tonic Accord podcast. My name is Drew. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Alex. And today we're going to be talking about Biden's first month in the presidency. It's March 2nd at the time of this recording. We've had a little over a month since he's been inaugurated. And while it is still early to give an overall grade, of course, we do want to check in with what he's been doing with his first month. He had a lot of bold plans, at least in his view, at the beginning. And we want to see where he's at, how the country's responding, and what we think it's going to mean for the future of Joseph Biden's administration and the United States as a whole. So, Alex, good to see you, man. Looking fresh, looking clean. Hope it's not too cold up there in your area. But how you doing?
Hey, not too bad, man. Just off today, so hanging out. And, it's actually been sunny and nice outside, so I'm kind of happy about that. I've been kind of having this weird anxiety about what happens when the pandemic is over and I actually have to go out and just be openly social with everyone again. It's like I'm gonna need some time to kind of readjust to going out all the time, because I'm kind of getting used to being at home and just kind of enjoying, work and life. And so it'll be interesting. How are you?
Yeah, that adjustment is going to be huge. I'm like itching to travel and stuff. I mean, you and I had a trip planned back last year in May, and we had to cancel it. So I mean, I'm itching to get out there, and so is the rest of the country. So let's actually bring that to the topic at hand. I think one of the first things, and I will still argue one of the main reasons I think Joe Biden won the election was because of his conversation around COVID, his promises around getting the country back on track as far as combating COVID and vaccinations and all that. That was a big part in a lot of campaign promises. He wanted to say science is back. We're taking it seriously. We want to put the experts first again. So let's look at what's going on. Currently, what I'm looking at is just a place called ourworldanddata.org. And it looks like Israel is in the top for COVID vaccinations doses administered per 100 people, followed by the UAE, then the United Kingdom, and then the United States. And then pretty much everyone else is significantly farther after that. We're beating the European Union as a whole significantly, and we're beating out everyone else in North America. So to me, that's at least a good sign with COVID. However, the other stat that we need to take account for is since Biden's taken office, we've had another excess of 100,000 deaths of COVID, bringing the total up to 500,000 deaths. So while that continues to climb, we're also, we're kind of at the crossroads of the battle, and the vaccinations continue to climb. So I'm starting to see some hope in regards of COVID, but I wanted to get your thoughts. How do you think Joseph Biden's doing with COVID?
With COVID, I would say I'm quite happy. Later, obviously, we'll get into some of the other stuff, which I'm actually pretty unhappy about. But so far, in terms of COVID, I think if you forgot everything else Biden's done so far, or even in potentially the next 4 years, just if they can get COVID under control and get everyone vaccinated, I think a lot of the nation would be happy, myself included. And so far, it's looking really good. Now we have 3 vaccines approved inside of the United States. And they keep pushing closer and closer to those numbers now. I remember for a while it was going to be late 2021, potentially early 2022, when we'd get a majority of Americans vaccinated. And now we're looking at May, June, which is huge. And I think the interesting number with especially this new Johnson & Johnson vaccine is, though it's only in the mid 60% in terms of helping you not even get COVID, it's in terms of not dying or being hospitalized, it's almost 100% effective. And it's effective with the variants. where the other ones haven't been tested with the variants yet. So I'm really happy, Drew, on that front. The only thing I would say is that I think people like Anthony Fauci, who I've loved, through this whole thing, I think he needs to be a little more optimistic. And I think that's the one issue with the whole Biden administration is they do need to be a little more optimistic, because if you're someone on the fence about getting vaccinated and you're being told, well, you're still going to need to wear a mask, you're still not going to be able to, have a huge gathering until 2022 or something, I think it might make someone say, I'm young, why should I get a vaccine? And so I know that, like, obviously our lives are going to start improving and the experts know that, but they're trying to be cautious. But I think we should balance caution with optimism. And I think sometimes the public health experts aren't good at that, which, again, that's not really their job to be optimistic. But I do think the administration could be better about encouraging people to get the vaccine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I mean, I think we're not quite at the phase yet where it's like open to the public. Perhaps that problem may not be as big of a problem once it's into the set part where we're like open season. But I still think the cats, like, we still don't fully understand how many people are willing to take the vaccine or not, because right now it's only gone through the first, like, most important people, right? Medical field, like seniors in hospice and stuff, and now it's going through the ranks of the frontline workers. So I see what you're saying. I mean, maybe they do need to figure more about the messaging about the public taking the vaccine, but we're not quite there yet. You know what I mean?
True.
Because, like, I mean, I go to CVS and they have these massive signs that say, we don't have the vaccine. Please stop asking about it. They will eventually. And, and I'm in line for one of those. Like, I'm going to be that guy in line who gets it, with the public second to last or whatever, because I'm not a frontline worker in the health industry. But I mean, overall, yeah, I think that as far as the vaccination ramp up, the fact that you said, you already said it, Johnson & Johnson has a new vaccine. It seems like the government is working with multiple companies to fast track some of these approvals and get them out and get them manufactured in high rates. And like you had already mentioned a little bit, they keep moving the schedule up, which is very, very rare in government at all, in general. Very, very commonly, they set out a project and they almost always push back the date. If you're from the LA area and have anything to do with, highway construction, that's very true. But this seems like they keep moving it up. And now I'm reading an article came out today that Biden now says the U.S. will have enough vaccine for every adult by the end of May. That doesn't mean every adult will have the vaccine by the end of May, but it will be available. Like, there will be manufactured for every adult by the end of May. And he goes on to say that they expect people to actually have all their vaccines in the summer. So that's really, I think that's really good. I hope that is the case, right? Obviously, we still have to get through that, but I think what I see is a signaling from the government that this administration is taking the COVID very seriously. And I wanted to address the other parts of COVID, like how Biden is trying his best to open schools up by having teachers now be on the higher up in the priority list to get vaccinations. And I think that's a really smart move. I think anyone you ask out there, teachers by the end of March, you get first jab. Oh, yeah, okay. So someone in the comments just mentioned it as well. Yeah, I think it's a really smart move. Move teachers up. I think everyone understands that schooling from home is pretty ineffective. A whole generation of kids are just missing out on a year. So get the teachers back in. Get the kids back in school. Get everyone associated with education vaccinated quicker. And I see that happening, and it seems like that's a priority of Biden's administration. So I think that's a smart move.
Absolutely. And when I was teaching in Spain last year, I mean, I firsthand saw that, like, you're going to have certain kids with resources and good parenting that are probably going to actually go above and beyond during this time. But the problem is you're going to have a lot of kids who are going to fall behind, whether it's through laziness or just lack of resources, bad family environment. I agree with you. Like, I was teaching English in Spain. I had the kids, in March, their English was really improving. By June, they could barely speak English again. It's just really hard for things like math and language to do over the computer, and it's hard when parents have jobs and lives and potential family issues to deal with. So I agree with you. I think it just all comes down to resources and kind of balancing state and federal issues and unions, which have sometimes been a roadblock for opening schools and sometimes not. But it does seem like things are getting better on that front. So I agree with you. It's good to see that that's progressing.
Cool.
Should we do the relief package while we're into COVID?
Still kind of COVID. So yeah, COVID related. Let's get into the relief package. This is probably one of Biden's biggest immediate domestic challenges. Obviously, it's a piece of legislation, so he can only do so much. He can only promote a package, and then it gets finangled and earmarked by Congress and then passed through that, which it has already. The House of Representatives passed the COVID stimulus bill, the $1.9 trillion, and now we're looking at its will it survive the Senate with certain provisions. But this is a big thing, right? Because a vast majority of Americans still feel that they need some sort of COVID stimulus. It's a highly popular piece of legislation overall, and now there's some but there is some roadblocks and some nitty gritty that have been kind of muddying the waters. And I wanted to get into a little bit of that. So one is the direct payments where Biden had originally promised $2,000 now takes into account the $600 everyone got a little bit ago. So now the current one will be $1,400. Some people are pissed off about that, as well as the increase in minimum wage hike. There is a push by progressive liberals to add a minimum wage increase to $15 in this COVID stimulus bill. The Biden administration has said publicly that they wanted that to happen, but has backed away from pushing it in the Senate, as senators like Joe Manchin and other less progressive Democrats have argued that they wouldn't vote for it with the $15 minimum wage. So there's this minimum wage conflict that's getting attached onto this COVID bill. Alex, what do you make of that, and what do you see?
Well, first things first, I just wanted to go off what's actually like all the specifics in the package, because I am fine with about half of them and have serious problems with the other half.
Okay.
So I first just want to say that I don't see this bill going through the Senate and passing right now. And by the time they actually figure this out, I think it's going to be April, maybe late April. And it's not a good look for Biden because, he did, like you said, he promised $2,000 checks. Now it's down to $1,400. And the idea of a relief package is to get relief out quickly. And so, there's two parts of this bill. There's the, pandemic stuff, $1,400 checks, a lot of aid for state and local governments who, had to put off people during the pandemic. There's also rent relief, money for vaccines and testing, which, is great because it's actually going to encourage people to get back out there and spend money, which is kind of important. And then there's also money to reopen schools. And that stuff, I think both sides more or less agree on. Obviously, they probably have disagreements on the price tag, but that stuff I think is pretty bipartisan. But the second part, to me, seems like a wish list for structural change for a lot of more progressive Democrats. And it's stuff that just a lot of even moderate Democrats don't agree with. You have tax credits to fight child poverty, which, agree with it or not, I don't know if this is properly the time to do it, because the right is going to call it welfare. The progressives are going to call it necessary. You have an increase in the minimum wage, which, like you mentioned, and you also have transportation aid in some cities like San Francisco. And, the rationale here is kind of basically you want to spend a lot because who knows if you're going to get a second chance to do it, which I understand. But the problem is that I think this is like going against the idea of a relief package, and it's going to maybe muddle the waters if we ever need to do something quick down the road. Like, sometimes government needs to be efficient, and adding all of these extras to a bill that just needs to be passed. Like, let's look at it. The $1,400 payments are popular. Money towards vaccines and schools and testing is popular. I don't think a minimum wage in some parts of the country is popular. I don't think transportation infrastructure spending, potential child welfare programs like those, it's just not the time, in my opinion. And, it was Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, but now it's also, what's his name? Mark Warner out of Virginia. You have Angus King out of Maine, who's an independent. And the problem is they just don't have the votes to pass it unless, some conservatives come over. And yeah, it's just a rant aside. I don't think it's going to pass right now. And by the time they agree on what to pass, Americans are going to be struggling. And that's against the point of relief. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things. I think there's an end to an extension on unemployment benefits that ends March 14th. So they really do have a deadline before, pardon my French, shit hits the fan for a lot of people.
Right.
So they are pressed to move. So I hear your argument for that. The progressive argument I keep hearing from the left side is that they are trying to add structural change to this bill because COVID has shown that our structure needs change. I think the argument is that minimum wage is tacked on not as an aside to the COVID relief, but as a main part of it because frontline workers were paid so little and had, we all told them they were heroes and they're still paid like crap. Now, the minimum wage one is really tough because I took a look at the Congressional Budget Office's report from just a few days ago about their opinions on the raising the minimum wage to $15. And I want to take a look at some key notes. Was overall, I think it said, I gotta find it. Shoot, effects on wages, revenues. I mean, it's a lot, but it's a good. The Congressional Budget Office is a nonpartisan entity of the government that looks at legislation and gives as unbiased as they can an economic analysis over what it does to the congressional budget as well as the economy. And they were basically saying that over time it would increase lower income people's wages by something like $508 billion. Right? It would shift wealth to low wage workers. However, there was a short-term shot to the employment market that they warned about, which makes sense, especially if you are in an area that has a lower standard of living and a lower cost of living. So if you're Joe Manchin from West Virginia, and people there are living on $8 or $9 an hour, jumping up to 15 could cause small businesses especially to to actually reduce employment. So there is a legitimate argument for why perhaps phasing in a minimum wage, which is part of the conversation. And that needs to be part of the conversation. Perhaps you establish a $15 minimum wage for larger corporations and maybe exemptions for small businesses. Then you get into some legal gray areas with shell companies when you do that. But there's conversations to be had around the $15 minimum wage. I think it's worth having. It is the one thing that I do think that maybe you just get rid of for this bill to get it through. Drop the $15 minimum wage, and just get this stimulus through to help people now, which is kind of what you're saying is get something in now because people need it. But I also do understand the argument that this is part of the stimulus is to increase people's wages. It hasn't happened in forever. It is way overdue. Perhaps maybe not to 15 for some areas, but it needs to be higher than 725. So I am actually legitimately torn on this problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a nuanced issue. It's a super complicated issue, and there are certainly a multitude of states that I would argue that the minimum wage should actually be higher than $15 an hour. California, New York, just to name two. I would say probably closer to 20 because the cost of living is just so insane. But I don't know, again, like I was saying, I don't know if a relief package is the time to have a nuanced debate that's just going to hold up passing it. And that's kind of what you said too there, is that because I understand that it's probably needed in some of these states, but I think the bigger issue here is that there are just a lot of frontline lower income workers who have not had protections, not had good health care, and have not been getting paid well. And so you're right, it's an issue, but I just don't think a relief package is the time to have a debate on this. And that a lot of these moderates like Manchin are not going to go for it. And yeah, I mean, it's just not good because, I mean, even if they did budget reconciliation, which needs 51%, they don't even have that right now. So clearly they need to make some changes. And I just think that this is actually going to infuriate the right and maybe radicalize some of the messaging on the right as well, because that was always kind of the Trump Tucker Carlson messaging, was that Biden's just a Trojan horse for the far left. And I don't believe he is, but if you see some of these structural changes that they're trying to put into this bill, it kind of feeds that that propaganda. And I just don't know if we need that again when people just need help, man. And that's kind of where I stand on that.
I do think, though, it's worth thinking about that. What good is a majority in the Senate if you're not willing to use it? Right? It's not a very strong majority. In fact, it's a very weak majority, but it is a majority in the Senate. And what good is it to win that majority if you're not going to have these moments where you whip your representatives into voting for major bills, right? That's Chuck Schumer's job. I mean, Nancy, like, think about it this way too, is Nancy Pelosi, who, unlike what people say, is actually and is often criticized by progressives for progressing too slow and for holding back the Democratic Party. She was even on board with this $15 minimum wage, right? It passed through the House. So now it's in Chuck Schumer's hands. And I do think that, like, Joe Manchin or Sinema from Arizona, they might not vote for this, but, like, where's the political pressure?
But it's also Angus King of Maine now and Mark Warner of Virginia. So now there's 4 people who oppose this.
Yeah, I mean, true. I mean, again, like, if it is dead in the water, it's dead in the water. But I feel like there was not a big enough effort by the Biden administration to actually really push. They said publicly they wanted to push for this, but I feel like it was like the slightest whiff that Joe Manchin wasn't down, and then everyone was like, "Oh, let's drop it completely." Like, whoa, drop it completely. Like, can we at least hash it out for a second? Because again, I think this could be a huge, major victory. Because imagine, I mean, again, you mentioned, do people want this? I'm seeing here from Pew Research, 2/3 of Americans favor raising federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. 2/3, including 60% of, like, moderate Republicans, based on Pew Research. So I'm thinking this could be a major victory, even if it does get jammed through. Then in 2022, you say, hey, we increased the federal minimum wage for millions of people. Vote for us.
I just worry that we're such a big country that a one-size-fits-all wage would truly hurt businesses in some of these smaller.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying a one-size-fits-all.
But that would be. But that's what this is, Drew. It's a one-size-fits-all. I mean, that's literally what it is. A federal minimum $15 minimum wage is a one-size-fits-all policy. Like by definition, that's what it is. And so if you have West Virginia, where I think it's what, $7.50 or $8 right now, $7.25. Okay, even lovelier. So that's literally more than doubling it. And the ramifications of that on not like, okay, McDonald's can afford that, like bigger companies can afford that, but small businesses can't, especially after the last year of economic hardships. Sure. And so I agree with you that I think we need to raise the minimum wage in general, but just doubling it or whatever in some states is going to have some detrimental aspects.
Absolutely. I would not double the minimum wage in West Virginia overnight. That would cause a lot of people to lose their jobs and small businesses to fold. I think what you do is you phase it in. You also phase it in by size of company, right? So smaller businesses would be exempt, 15 employees or something, and then there's a different tier for over 100 employees. You try and avoid loopholes with shell companies so that people like Walmart actually do show that they have employed thousands and not franchised out. So I understand what you mean. Like, I'm with you. I'm not saying it, but like what I mean by it's not a one size fits all is I don't see why you can't do that. Why can't you have certain exemptions for certain counties or certain poverty levels in certain states? What's to stop you from doing that? Why? But to say that we have one senator that's now going to halt a massive part of a giant piece of legislation. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like, it just feels like, again, it feels like our system is putting so much power in the hands of so few.
No, I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. And from what I've gathered, the 4 that are against, or the 4 of the people that you would expect to go with it, there's different reasons. Like in Virginia, I believe it's actually part of the child poverty welfare program that they want to enact, or prolong, I guess it is. So like, that's the problem, is there's so many pieces to the bill that there's different moderate Democrats for different reasons who oppose different things in it, Sure. So it's going to be interesting. And, I do have to just say, like, kind of as a more macro part of this whole thing, is that this really just, I have to reiterate, it's not good for Biden right now, because he needs to get this passed because it's just going to be fuel for the right wing media. And like this is kind of a segue into unity, which I also just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about while we're here. Is kind of unity and how the right's saying, "Oh my God, there's no unity. Like he promised unity," and the thing is, I think that moderates and moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats should want Biden to succeed, because if he doesn't succeed, it's just fuel for radicalism in 2024. And so I've been really thinking about this a lot, and I read a really good article from Bill Kristol in the Bulwark now, and he basically said we need to ally with Democrats. He's like, we need to make Biden's presidency successful. And so, putting that back to the relief bill, I really hope that the people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and now Mark Ward, I hope that they decide to go along with this out of the greater good of kind of stopping what the alternative could be. And yeah, so I mean, like I'm curious to think what you think of unity, but I've had this idea about, because I mean, I'm sure you've seen the right's like, where's unity? He's doing all this stuff without us, and it's I think like you and I did that political compass test, back in October or something, and there's 4 quadrants, right? Left, right, authoritarian, and anarchy, I guess, would be the opposite of authoritarian. And I think the argument for unity is not left or right. I think it's up and down. Like I think we need to forget about the horizontal part of the political compass, mm-hmm. and think more about the authoritarian part of it, because there's a scary like right-wing authoritarianism. And so Bill Kristol makes that point, and Biden's made the point of unity. And I don't think it's about right or left. It's about stopping anti-democratic means. And that's why these parties need to come together, because I think if Biden's stimulus fails and if Biden's presidency keeps having some issues, then we're going to see this authoritarian wing keep growing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this will pass. I think the question is what will come with it. I think there's a high chance, especially what I'm reading now, that this minimum wage part will not be a part of it. And then, but you're right though that Biden needs to needs W's. He promised big victories early on, and he needs to deliver. He's doing so a little bit on the vaccines, which you mentioned. He needs to do so with this though, because stimulus bill needs to happen and very soon. Again, that mid-March ending of unemployment benefit extensions is big for millions of people. So they are on a time crunch and they need to get it in. As far as unity, I mean, gosh, I don't even I hate even talking about it because it's so disingenuous. Let's talk about unity when the Republican Party fully criticizes the domestic terrorist threat that the FBI has just today again warned about coming from the far right. Is a greater threat to the United States than ISIS. Words of the FBI Director Wray talking about far right-wing radicalism. Like call out Hawley and call out Ted Cruz, call out these guys. Like there will be unity when you cut out the cancer that is the authoritarianism brewing on the far right. And then last thing, I mean, super quick though, thoughts on international politics. I know we should have saved way more time for this, but give me your 5-10 on that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say again, really quick, just to reiterate, is that unity, I think, was misconstrued by the media. I think he means unity against anti-democratic means, and that's why we need the center right and the left to come together on that, and I think they will. But anyways, I totally agree with you there. But yeah, Syria, I'm not surprised, man. I'm really not surprised. You and I talked about this when Trump pulled out of Afghanistan right before he left office. It was clear that the U.S. is still engaged in conflicts over there, and Trump has, kept trying to pull out for political and symbolic reasons, but we clearly have a bone to pick there. And, Biden, on what I think was last Thursday, they bombed Syria. And it's more about Iran than Syria, though, right? This was after targets. Movements. Yeah, exactly. And to be completely honest, like to me, I'm not freaking out about it right now. Trump also bombed Syria within his first 2 months in office. It seems to almost be the passing of the guard. Who could bomb the Middle East quicker in their first couple months in office? Right. But no jokes aside, like I don't think it's that big of a deal right now. Iran has been mobilizing in the area. Syria is still bad, and Russia is still active there. So with all those things going, it was disingenuous for Trump to just pull out so quickly, even though I agreed with it. And you and I both called this back in I think November, that this is probably going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I mean, it's not super surprising that he would bomb Iranian targets. I never took Joe Biden as a peace-loving hippie, So I imagine he'll continue to use bombing strikes when he can. It shows Iran that we're not messing around even with a change of administration. Hopefully that puts us in a better negotiating table position, but I don't know. I really don't know enough about the strike to criticize. I think where Biden's getting valid criticism is what he has yet to do with this Jamal Khashoggi case. We have a longstanding weird alliance with the Saudi princes, and we now confirmed one of them was responsible for the killing of a legal American resident in the embassy in Istanbul, Turkey. So pretty wild. Weird that the Biden administration put that report out, which was not put out by the Trump administration, notably. So Biden put that out and made that public, and then has yet to really they've publicly said that they're going to stop some arms sales for offensive purposes. And that tag is worrying to me, which basically means we're still going to sell guns and missiles to the Saudis for defensive purposes. So it's kind of a half-assed response. So I would like to see the Biden administration be a little bit more critical of our allies that pretty much blatantly disregard human rights. And if you're gonna talk about we're gonna not sell guns anymore, don't put some stupid tagline to basically caveat to allow you to sell guns again in the future for defensive purposes instead of offensive purposes. So that's what I'm disappointed about. But again, I think it's pretty minimal so far because there really just hasn't had that much happen yet.
And I mean, let's be honest. From the reports I remember reading during the Obama years, Biden was the more hawkish side of Obama's foreign policy.
Right.
Obama has always kind of been more, probably closer aligned to Trump, in all honesty, in certain aspects of foreign policy. Biden's definitely more Clinton-esque establishment, foreign policy views. And I was telling my dad this last night because he was talking about how he was happy about the Biden administration, trying to take a harder line with Saudi Arabia. And I was like, I don't think they will. That's just my theory, but I don't think they will. Trump just does things out in the open more, and he has no shame. So all these things, were just in the public eye. But as we're seeing this week, I think the U.S. is in a very complicated relationship with Saudi Arabia, and I don't think one man's going to change that overnight.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so hopefully we do, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
All right. So that should wrap us up there. I mean, that was very condensed. And again, it's only been a month, but a very important one for millions of Americans. And Biden made pretty big claims. So we're putting them to the test. We'll see how the vaccine rollout goes. We'll probably do an end of the year review of his first year in office. To give a clearer picture. Let us know if you agree with the topics we discussed. What is your thoughts on President Biden's administration so far in the first month or so of his presidency? Are you feeling the effects of the administration change, or is it more just same shit, different day, business as usual from your end? Let us know your thoughts. And if you're watching live, stay tuned. We're having a guest on in the next episode, and we're really looking forward to it. So stay tuned for that, and we'll give you more info.
Ciao. All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom really quick.
Cool. All right.
And then we'll be good to go. Good. I feel like we eventually just need to do a full episode on immigration too, maybe, because there's so many things to talk about there, cause I was like, it's not even worth just touching on because, yeah.
Yeah, we will. We will. Sure.
I'll be right back.
All right. Hey, hello, John.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, I'm Drew. I'm the co-host for the Tonic Accord. We just finished up our first episode for the night. Alex is using the restroom, and then we'll get you in here. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. I was actually, this is the first time I've ever used Discord, and I was enjoying the ringtone there. I was not. It was like, oh, this is really pleasant.
Yeah, the little like.
I was.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Hey, what's going on?
John, how are you?
Good. I'm good, man. It's good to be alive. Good to be.
Hey.
All my limbs and organs functioning in the correct manner.
Hey, that's always a good, checklist. I was thinking about that recently. I was like, the big win of 2021 so far is that I haven't died or gone crazy yet. So I guess that's something.
Hey, still time.
There's definitely still time. Yeah, God, how long has it been since I actually met you? I just remember meeting you briefly in Sevilla.
Where did we meet again? You gotta remind me. I'm trying to.
I've tried to put it together too, because I don't think I was at my most clear-headed spot, but I think it was in Phoenix in Sevilla.
Phoenix.
It's like an American bar. It was like an American bar.
Okay, because you weren't staying at a hostel, were you?
No, I was studying there and back at that time, yeah. So I think it had to be something.
Well, who are our mutual friends? Who did? Because I'm trying to place how we exactly met.
So am I, because again, like I said, by the time I got there, I wasn't particularly clearly headed. So that's great. It's a great question.
I was sneaking off base every single chance I had. So
It's funny how many ideas come out of just drunken times. I mean, gosh, even this podcast was just Alex and I discussing politics over beers during college.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then we're like, wait, actually, we kind of disagree but agree enough to have a fun conversation, And
yeah,
then,
this is a good time. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, let's prove people wrong. We can have a mutually beneficial conversation. We can disagree with each other and not call each other names.
That's the idea.
The problem is, though, once you get into the QAnon side of the right, there's no way, I don't think, to have a conversation anymore.
Oh yeah,
I've given up. When I know it's going in that direction, I immediately that's when I just start name calling. I'm like, no, I'm not going to entertain your ideas because they're stupid. Like, you can't just say they're stupid. I'm like, no, they're stupid.
We had a whole episode about QAnon that we're currently in a flag battle with, because someone watched it and said it was cyberbullying because we were proving them wrong. So our video got flagged for cyberbullying, and I mean, we have it was 50 views. So we're like, really? Someone really thought this was? So we have to. I'm appealing that because once they flag it, it was just automatically taken down by AI, right? But I was like, yo, AI.
Well, I saw you on. So you upload to YouTube, or is there any other platforms you upload to?
Yeah, so we're on. I can even show you a link here in the Discord. I can post it for you. But we're on Spotify, YouTube, Podbean are their main way to distribute to all the different podcast sites. So there's we are on Apple Podcast and stuff. Here, I just posted it in the general chat channel for our Discord. You can go there and see our Podbean. So that's where you can get the audio, and then the video will be on YouTube as well.
And bear with me because this is always my first time using Discord.
Yeah, no
so
problem,
where is that chat channel?
It's a good question.
Oh, okay.
I always forget.
Click on the left here. Okay. Now I see. All right. And then it pops up. Okay. Got it. Sorry. Just kind of trying to familiarize myself with.
No, you're
no
good.
problem, dude. No problem at all.
Yeah, because I just because I watched a few of your videos on YouTube, and then I've just been seeing your more political posts on Facebook, and I was like, you're a funny motherfucker. I was like, I was like,
I've been working on it. I was about to go full time before this pandemic hit, and then Yeah, still
Damn.
working at a day job now.
Damn. Well, I mean, I would love to kind of get into it. I mean, do you want to do
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
let's get
intro,
into it.
Alex, and we can get started?
Yeah.
Actually, real quick before we do you have any other questions for us before we just get started here?
About how long is the episode gonna record for? Or?
Half hour.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, cool.
And yeah, actually, one question for you: would you rather if we focus more on like comedy or mix in more like politics and comedy? Because obviously we're a politics podcast, you know. So I'm trying to think of how to like perfectly mix it, you know.
Hey, let's just go
Perfect.
wherever the fucking the winds take us. Let's.
Hell yeah!
I fucking like it. Cool.
Talking to anybody at this point is a delight. For
I
me.
feel you, man. I feel you. I haven't seen a new face or met a new person in a year.
I have never enjoyed small talk until last year, and it is wow. Do I love to hear someone ask me how my day is going? It's
yeah. I will tell you about the weather. Yes, hi. The weather's fantastic now.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Go
cool.
ahead,
Let's
Alex.
get after
Yeah,
it.
let's do it.
All right.
Let me know. I'll let you just give me a countdown, and I'll hit that recording button, and then we'll be officially going.
All right, I'm good to go. Whatever you are. So
all right, sweet.
Yeah, good.
All right, recording in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, folks, and welcome back to the Tonic Accord podcast here. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by John McCombs. He is a 10-year veteran of comedy and a 4-year veteran of the Marine Corps. John has performed in 15 different countries, which is pretty cool, over 2 European tours. And he's also opened for Michelle Wolf, who was on Netflix, Comedy Central, said some interesting things about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So great for him. He's also open for, let's see here, Tim Meadows from SNL, and is a regular at the Laugh Factory and Zanny's. So, John, thanks for coming on, man. I just got to say, you're hilarious.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is good. I'm excited to make you laugh and maybe piss you off at the same time. But you're gonna hate how much you like me.
Well, we were talking before we started recording that over the last year, small talk has actually become nice. Like talking to people that you've never, like it's in the past. I don't know about you, but small talk, I'm like, oh God, keep me out of this one. But now it's like, geez, just like talking to people about general stuff is fun.
I know, right?
I mean, just going to a 7-Eleven and somebody just asking you how your day is and like, let me download my entire day onto you. I mean, I used to be a cashier at Target, and I remember those days, and like these single moms would just talk my ear off, and I didn't want to hear it. And now I get it. I feel like you have nobody else to talk to for your whole day. And so the first chance you get with an adult human interaction, you seize it. So yeah, I might say some crazy things in here that are gonna get me canceled. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm going for it. I'm sorry. Can I curse? I should ask that.
No,
before.
you're good. It's the internet, man. We're
Totally fine.
Yeah, we're not broadcast.
All right, good.
Yeah, well, let's so before a pandemic though, give us a little bit of idea of what was going on with you and comedy, and kind of like you said, you almost started to do it full time before the pandemic. Like, give me a little insight into what was going on with that.
So I'm based out of Chicago, and I was doing shows pretty regularly. I was like getting more club work. I was doing shows, on the road and whatnot. And in 2019, I did a little over a month long tour in Europe. I did 28 shows in like 30 some odd days. Nice. And I was making money. I was making enough to live off of. So I was like, okay, I'm at the end of my lease, the current lease I was on, I was gonna, just make this big long European tour, 90 days. That's how long you can travel there without a visa, and just make as much money as I can, and then make the transition over to probably New York, and then just do this whole thing where I've got I can make enough money for 3 months in Europe to survive for another 3 months in the States while I build more material, whatever, try to get my name out, and then I can go back on the road. And so I had a whole idea of how I was going to make things work, but good old Wuhan put an end to that.
Yeah.
Some bats. Yep.
Yeah, it definitely, because I listen to a decent amount of comedy podcasts and stuff, kind of a range of people, and I think it's a fair thing to say that 2020 and now I guess 2021 hasn't been a great time for standard comedy. You know what I mean? Like, if you're someone like, because I mean, like I said, you're hilarious, and like if you're trying to get on the up and up, it's probably a strange time to be doing that, especially when you can't travel because I mean, yeah, you've done a lot of foreign tours and a lot of foreign specials, and like that's what I was curious about is like what are the crowds like? Do you have to like change your jokes in order to deal with, maybe people that like don't understand a lot of like American cultural things that maybe most comedians would talk about, or is it mainly expats that are in, say, like Munich or Spain or something?
Not so much. I mean, sometimes it varies, but for the most part, I mean, you don't realize how much America has a hegemony until you go to another country. We control a lot of like the media that they take in. So they watch a lot of the same movies. They listen to a lot of the same music. They know our politics better than we do in a lot of cases. So they're very aware of like a lot of what's going on here culturally. One of the things, like you might have to change a handful of like references and local things, but I mean, it's not as drastic as people think. And a lot of people were asking me, you have to like perform in another language? I'm like, no, like a lot of the world speaks English as a second language too. So there are definitely places you can go and still be successful just performing in English.
Now, did you get your start while you were deployed on bases? Did I hear that right, or is that how did you get started with comedy in regard?
No.
Okay.
I started when I was in college.
Okay.
I started when I was so I went into the military after college, and when I was deployed, dude, I mean, the first deployment I did almost no comedy, and it sucked. I eventually convinced the base to let me organize a talent show, and that was fun. Like, I actually got to perform I was hosting the talent show, so I got to perform for actual like guys who were returning from Afghanistan because they were coming through our base as like their hub to go back to the United States. So I got to perform for all these guys who were coming back from Afghanistan. So it was pretty cool because like the next day I was at the barbershop and there were these two guys who were just transiting through, and they're like, "That host last night was pretty funny." They didn't even know it was me, so I was like, "Yes,
nice." Unsolicited
compliments are the best. Like, but yeah, I mean, and then my second deployment was to Spain, and that's where I met Alex, and we're still trying to figure out what drunken hellhole we stumbled into and bumped into each other to
It's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have.
I have to ask you, talking about Spain, what do you think of Spanish comedy? Because so for the last 3 years I was working in Madrid, and I lived with a Spanish family, and they would bring on some Spanish comedy shows, and to be honest, I was like, I didn't find it that funny. I don't know if you watched any Spanish comedy or anything, but
I'm still learning Spanish. Honestly, you're better than I am because I mean I was on a base when I was in Spain, so right. I mean I wasn't really interacting with a lot of Spaniards day to day. But one of the positives of the pandemic is I have had time to actually learn Spanish. So at an intermediate level, I'd say right now. But I have been like watching a little bit of like Comedy Central, Latin America type stuff. But it's still like one of those where I'm still trying to figure everything out. But I mean, it seems like it's pretty good. I know, and I interviewed a comedian from Argentina a little whiles back about like what the comedy scene was like in Latin America, and so can't really give you an honest opinion because I don't want to. It's hard to judge somebody doing comedy in a language that's not their first language.
Sure.
I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to do Spanish or trying to do comedy in Spanish, even if I had a very good grasp of the language. It's just there's some things you just they don't translate. I don't want to try to judge somebody on that.
Like cadence, slang, that kind of stuff that it's really fluid in comedy that it's hard to translate. Yeah.
Play on words, puns, stuff like that. It's all so difficult. I mean, a lot of the concepts are the same, a lot of the themes, but the delivery method is just so it's different, and so I mean, hats off. I know I obviously know plenty of comedians who perform in English, and but it's not the first language, and only a handful, I would say, I really make me laugh. There's one guy in Estonia who's fucking so goddamn good. But he came to Canada and subsequently the United States, and then he went back to Estonia. But the dude, he could crush in like any language, so he's fucking great.
That's dope.
I feel like there's a kind of a Slavic coldness that would make for great comedy.
Slavic cold.
It's I know
what you're talking about.
Deadpan. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely see some countries where I think like there's definitely like in the Baltic states where it's colder. There's like this kind of, I don't know, this like feeling of just like despair. I don't know what it is. Like they're really drawn to like dark comedy and shit. So, I mean, that's what they go for. So more hats off to them.
So let's dive a little bit into the political aspects. Do you do politics in your comedy? I've checked out some of your material, and I get a joke about Uber drivers that I thought was hilarious. But do you do a lot of politics in your comedy?
I don't, or at least I didn't. Last year kind of changed things a bit in terms of. I mean, I remember coming back and I did a couple shows in the summer, and I had to feature at a club, and I was looking over, my material. I'm like, shit, man, some of these jokes I just don't feel like I can do anymore, and not from a perspective of like I'm going to get canceled or anything like that. It's more so from a sense of like I have a duty not to tell this joke the way with what's going on currently. The way it currently is, it just doesn't. It's not honest to me. It's not honest of how I feel in the moment. So, yeah, I think I've been writing more politically charged. Not like I don't want to harp on somebody, make like people feel bad or nothing, but like I do like pointing out contradictions. I really like pointing out the absurdities of society and shit like that. So it's been a ripe time for that for sure.
So you said over the last year you've got more political with your like comedic commentary.
Well, damn, dude, you guys said you read my Facebook, so
I mean, yeah, it's true.
That's the stuff. Honestly, it's getting like the most likes and shit. I don't know. It's when I just go on a rant. Like I had a whole series of posts where every day I was just dunking on Kentucky.
I remember that.
This was after Mitch McConnell like shot down the $2,000 stimulus checks. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck Kentucky. And I just every day was like a new thing. I shit on the Kentucky Derby. I shit on KFC. I shit on like the Kentucky Wildcats or whatever. Like anything that was Kentucky related, I just was like, "Fuck this!" And it was fun. Like people were actually enjoying it.
That reminds me of Bill Burr's like Philadelphia rant. You ever seen that Philly rant where he just shits on Philly fans for like an hour and a half and they love it? That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Okay. My question to you is: do you think Trump was good or bad for comedy? Because like, at least with the late night shows, I feel like they all kind of got unprecedented success because they were so fixated on Trump. But since he's been out of office, like Seth Meyers and Colbert seem to be kind of struggling, for example, to really make people laugh as much. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's been bad. I mean, anybody who thinks he's honestly been good for comedy, I don't think they're a good comic.
Fair,
because it's like he's good for easy low hanging fruit. I mean, the guy he was a caricature before he was president. It's just this guy who can't form a sentence. It looks like a Tito, as people say. That's always what they go to. Whatever you want to call him, with weird haircut, and so for really, I mean, I had one Trump joke before before he became president, and then after that, or not before, but like while he was president, and then after that, I just didn't want to do him. I mean, it was, and I think Patton Oswalt, he has a special where he said it best. It's like trying to write Trump jokes is like trying to. It just the news cycle was so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you couldn't write about it because it's like trying to write about a monkey taking a shit on a sidewalk, and while you're trying to talk about this monkey taking a shit, it started a fire in a dumpster, and everybody's like, why are you talking about the shitting monkey? It started a fire now. It's like, it's impossible to keep up. So yeah, it worked for a late night format where you write jokes that day and talk about shit that day. But as a comedian, you know, you write jokes over the course of weeks, months, years even. And so it's not, how can you keep up with, you know, what everything that we were talking about, or everything that was going on for the past, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think though do you think that comedy has an important role in criticizing society, or has that, or perhaps not, and it's just supposed to be entertainment?
100%.
You do think so?
No, 100%. It does. And some people will say, yeah, it's just funny. Just be funny to be funny. And that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with just wanting to do like Brian Regan, Jim Gaffigan type jokes, whatever. You want to talk about McDonald's or Pop-Tarts or whatever. That's fine. There's a market for that, and no harm, no foul against those guys for doing that. That's what they want to do. But you should still just speak to what's true to you and your experience. If you don't give a fuck about the politics, don't talk about politics. If you do, then go for it. So I just think we as comedians also need to recognize that, you know, comedy is such a vast, wide thing. It's like food, you know? Mm-hmm. Just because you like Italian doesn't necessarily mean that like eating, I don't know, Mexican is wrong. So they're two different things. You can have your preference of what you want. You could dabble and mix it together or whatever. And then you have your candy. You know, everybody likes candy, but you know, it's not going to fill you up. If you eat too much of it, you're going to feel bad. So it's like that. There's so many different avenues and places you can go with comedy that I don't think you have to, but just stay true to who you are and what is relevant to your experience.
It's funny you say candy, because I think that's a really interesting point to take, because I think myself included, I was a victim to this, but over the last 4 years, it was just easy to, like, you know, take a bite out of the lowest hanging fruit, you know, and now it's like, Jesus, like, that candy was sweet, but it didn't fill me up, and now I'm like craving something more comedy wise, you know, because like just these guys making the same jokes every day, you're like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of meat to it, I guess. But okay, so I want your opinion on it, because there's still a little bit of comedy involved in this. But so you're a comedian, like, what did you think about Ted Cruz's shitty stand-up attempt at CPAC? Because to me, he seemed like a really bad Dennis Miller. You know, like fascist Dennis Miller, like he was yelling freedom and all this shit. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This was the guy who brought the Constitution to the debates in 2016. And now he's trying to like laugh about shit in 2020 and 2021. And what do you take of that, man?
Bro, I mean, I'm sorry. I know you might be a little more conservative than I am, but the current state of the Republican Party is fucking hilarious to me.
Me too.
Simultaneously hilarious and terrifying. That's what it is. Is how many people still ascribe to this, and how many people just it's just bad shit. It's just people trying to act more like what they think people want. And so Ted Cruz is an attorney and a smart person, but he now feels like he has to put on this fucking I don't know, WWE persona in order to tap into Trump's base. It's like Jeb Bush like tweeting a photo of a gun and saying America. Like what are you doing? Like, this isn't who you are. Just stop. Just be yourself. So I don't think he's fooling anybody. And I saw very brief clips of the CPAC thing, but like, I don't think he's fooling anybody. And I'm honestly like, I don't know what the Republican Party is going to do after Trump, because apparently none of them have any idea either.
It was pretty, yeah. I watched the CPAC, and it honestly felt like I was watching a parody of CPAC. But it was, again, it's almost that like you can't joke about it because it's already the joke kind of thing. Like that Ted Cruz stand-up bit was so cringy. I almost I physically couldn't even watch. I physical reactions to how cringy it was. I think, but the last couple of things I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned a little bit about how you had some jokes that you wouldn't want to do anymore, or for whatever reason. And I want to touch on that because obviously the big cultural warfare topic right now is cancel culture, right? And you almost can't go a day without hearing about cancel culture. Do you feel that there is a kind of a cancel culture and it has an effect on comedy, or do you find that comedy is maybe perhaps ascended past it, or it's untouched by it, or somewhere in the middle?
No, I think, well, it depends on what your definition of cancel culture is, because
Sure.
a lot of people who have been quote unquote canceled haven't really been canceled. They've had opportunities taken away from them that they've also gained other opportunities. Cosby was canceled. That's fucking
sure.
Okay.
That's pretty much canceled.
So if you're looking at like people getting thrown in prison, that's different. But in my opinion, I think a lot of people who rail against cancel culture are usually just lazy. They're frustrated because they are being challenged to think a little more critically about something they want to say. Edgy comedy still has a place. Edgy comedy is not going anywhere. But to say, I can't be edgy anymore because people get offended, well, it's like, well, why are they getting offended? And it's because, like, you said a shitty thing. Well, maybe if you thought of a different way to say your shitty thing, or a less shitty way to say your point, at the end of the day, you want to point to the joke. So how you figure out how to deliver it is, ultimately what pisses people off or makes them like it. So, like, if a joke works without having to use a slur, then don't use the slur. I mean, like, you should be a good enough writer to be able to think around why somebody is offended about something you said. So most of the feedback, or most of the things I've heard, at least at my level, about cancel culture are not so much to do with people being offended over, you can't talk about X ever. There are I know plenty of jokes of where people talk about X subject and they work and people like them. So it just, people don't want to do the homework, the research necessary to make it work.
Wow, that's a really good point, man.
Yeah, like I feel like cancel culture has been completely destroyed by the right over the last year, because there was a time when, okay, you actually, like, maybe there was cancel culture in the fact of, like, there was disingenuous canceling of certain people over others, but now to me it just seems like the right have kind of become snowflakes. It's like, oh, I've been banned from Disney, but like 50 other platforms are calling me, but like Holly,
Yeah.
like, like you said, like, yeah, his book, it blows my mind, man.
It's like, there are repercussions to saying shitty things. So why continue to say shitty things? It's like, you don't want to, like, the people like First Amendment. Well, First Amendment just keeps the government from throwing you in jail for saying something stupid. Like, it doesn't stop a private company from banning you from Twitter, or canceling their contract with you. They are a company who, at the end of the day, they want to make money. And if you cost them money, they're not going to work with you. So when you say shitty things, they have no obligation to continue to work with you when you are costing them money because of the shitty things you say.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Drew, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, with regards to like comedy, I mean, I have, I've never done stand up myself. I have a brother who's done some stand up, but I've gone to like open mics and comedy nights around Los Angeles. I've been to Flappers and Burbank and stuff, and this was obviously all pre-pandemic, but I remember like the comics there were throwing out jokes that probably wouldn't pass the Twitter test, but people were laughing. I didn't think anyone felt uncomfortable. Like, I guess to me I'm not associated with like comedy in the industry. And then when I went to a show, I was like, oh wow, like people are getting away with, like, people are laughing at stuff and people are saying jokes that I would have maybe thought would be cancel culture and that weren't.
On the other side of that, on the other side of that is to also remember that, like, if somebody has an issue with a bit, a comedy, whatever. They have an issue with the comedy routine. They can't come at it. They shouldn't come at it from a disingenuous point of view. So when people, for instance, take something that's said in the comedy club, strip it of the context, and print it on paper, then it's different. It has a totally different feel, and then now it is completely how you, the reader, interpret it based on your voice, based on your experiences, based on all that, without any of the nuance of comedy. A lot of this, I mean, you could take almost any comedian in the world, and if you just print out their act word for word on paper, you could cancel probably half of them, honestly. And some of them probably who are not even that, you wouldn't think that they're offensive comedians. But that's the art in the work, is putting the nuance in the material. And that's why it works in clubs. That's why, that environment works. In the context of a comedy club, if you are offended by something a comic says, or open mic, whatever, with knowing that their intention was trying to make somebody laugh or something like that, I think it's fine. It's totally appropriate and fine if you come afterwards and say, hey, I had a problem with this joke because of XYZ, whatever. And I wouldn't get offended by somebody having a problem with the joke I told if they came to me and said, hey, maybe I had this experience, or maybe I don't think you're doing proper respect to this thing. And I've asked comics, or friends of mine, after an open mic where I've done sets where I talk about, LGBTQ stuff, and who are of that community. And I said, hey, am I okay here? Like, do you think like there's a way that I'm approaching this that I should change, or something like that? And I mean I'm not trying to make them like my whisperer or whatever, but I do feel like their opinion and their perspective on the subject matter is important, and I want to respect. Maybe they see something that I don't see, or can relate to experience I have not had personally.
Mm-hmm. But you're doing your due diligence, and there's respect involved.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to talk about something that I haven't done research on. I haven't tried to at least understand. And if I don't understand it, I will be the first one to admit I don't fucking know what I'm talking about. And I am not somebody you should listen to. But here's my take, because you're here and you paid 2 drinks. So
there you go. Right.
I'm curious to you, because I think there's a cultural aspect to kind of Trumpism that doesn't get discussed enough, and it's kind of like a reaction to the left's like kind of more politically correct culture that's been growing. And I'm center right, like I've left the Republican Party, but I'm worried about Trumpism because there's Republican values I cherish still. And I wonder if comedy, or not even comedy, but the cancel culture / the crazy like social justice like kind of culture that some people on the left have, I'm worried that it's just going to push people back towards Trumpism. And like I'm worried that everyone thinks that, okay, Biden defeated Trump in 2020, so we're all good. Do you like, because I have this fear, and I'm curious if either one of you shares this with me, that if the left keeps going so like gun heavy with critical race theory and just taking a fine magnifying glass to everything that people say, do you think there could be a backlash in 2024? Like, because I just look at even some things that comedians say where they like the New York Times puts out an article, and it's not like you're watching the special, you're reading what they said a month after it was said, out of context. And I'm worried that just kind of this overreactive craziness is going to have a backlash again.
Well, I mean, we already saw it. I mean, Obama was followed by Trump, succeeded by Trump. So,
fair.
I mean, you did see that backlash already manifest in Trump and Trumpism. And then the appeal of Trumpism, I've noticed, is that it doesn't require critical thought. It is very simple solutions to very complex problems. Yeah. Illegal immigration. Build a wall. ISIS is killing people. Carpet bomb them. Like shit like that, where you just say a soundbite and people just lose their shit because they don't have to think critically anymore. I don't think, I mean,
Don't you think though canceling Mr. Sorry, but don't you think like canceling Mr. Potato Head, for example, or like these type of things, don't you think they just get in the way of actually good policy and good progress? Like, I don't know.
Well, all that shit's just a fucking smoke show anyway.
I agree.
It's all just posturing.
But it fuels the right.
Renaming Aunt Jemima is just pandering so you don't have to make any actual real structural changes to problems. It's just a fucking Band-Aid over a fucking leak in the dam. So I mean, that's what they're going to continue to do because there's money in it. As long as there's money in pissing people off, that's what they'll continue to do. So, and now they've gone from Fox News to Newsmax to OAN, and it's now an even louder bullhorn picking out the most ridiculous stories of, now the new thing is like, gender fluidity. That's the new, like, fucking fighting ground that they're taking up, and it's like, are we going to allow transgender athletes to compete in women's leagues and stuff like that? So it's stuff like that are basically just dog whistles to get people excited and pissed off. They just want to keep people pissed off. That's really it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you certainly have not pissed me off. I thought this was a great episode. Go for it. Alex.
Hold on, Drew. I feel disappointed if I didn't bring this up while we still have John on here. It was after Trump got acquitted for the second time. You commented on my post and talked about how like we should encourage Democrats to find Republicans that are not QAnon Trumpists and vote for them in the midterms and stuff. Like, could you go into that just really quickly? Because I think that's actually a cool idea and maybe bipartisan.
100%, because I mean, I looked at like a representative in Illinois, Adam Kinzinger.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Republican, and he was one of the first ones to say like Trump was responsible. We need to distance ourselves from this guy, and he got so much backlash. He got a letter written from his own family telling him how disappointed and disgusted they were because of what he said about Trump, and I mean, we need more politicians who are going to put the country before the party and who are going to, at the very least, acknowledge reality. Like, that's what's really disturbing and frustrating for me, is that how willing a lot of these people are to recognize that this guy is a fucking poison, but I'm still going to indulge him because I want his votes. And I mean, shit, dude, if you made the impeachment a secret ballot, he would have been convicted like 95-5. Like, no doubt. They all fucking hated him. They all knew he was responsible for that shit. But so long as, I mean, and so to your point with what I said on that post is, yeah, I was advocating for people in 2022 and whatever local elections to if they're left leaning, if they're Democratic, if you live in an area like Alabama, Mississippi, heavily GOP areas where like your Democratic candidate is gonna get fucking destroyed anyway, vote for at least like a moderate on the right. Vote for somebody who can at least have common sense and not just do whatever Trump says, who has some guts and sticks up for what they believe in. And that way we can start to shift the GOP back towards a party that has some, it at least exists in reality, at least exists in reality that we all live in. So that's what I would like to see is, yes, the GOP return to
Earth,
a reality based on fact.
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Definitely well said.
Well, we should probably wrap this episode up. Alex, do you have any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, I just I'm just glad to have you on. I just think you're funny, and obviously this year has taken some tolls on probably being able to grow your brand. But I definitely wish you the best, because I think you're not only funny, but you have just amazing ideas, and so not much else to say, but yeah, thank you for coming on.
So where can people find you?
Yeah. So I have I'm on Facebook, obviously. I'm on Instagram at John McCombs Comedy. I should be on Twitter more, unfortunately, but I'm not. I wish I was, but God damn it, it's just so hard to grow a following there. I've already got all these people on Facebook. Here, I make all my Facebook posts public, so just like it. Don't comment stupid shit. Just share it and like it. So, and that'll be more to me than everything else. But yeah, and I'll be starting hopefully some live stuff again soon. But yeah, thanks.
Last thing, I'm just curious. Will 2022 be better for comedy?
2022?
Yes, sir. Like once the pandemic is over, like once we get back to life.
Dude, 2021 is gonna be better for comedy than last year. Shit. I mean, we got 3 vaccines. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. So I do think that we are going to be in the summer at a place where, I mean, we were already doing outdoor stuff, and that's at least a good thing about like what came out last year is it showed how much resiliency people have. Because we were doing outdoor shows, people were doing drive-in shows, there's Zoom comedy. I mean, is it the same? No, but we're trying our best.
Yeah.
So I believe that we're going to see a comedy boom. We're going to see a live entertainment boom after this is all said and done. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to getting back out there.
Well, I certainly know that I personally am itching to do anything regarding society and having fun. So comedy clubs will be on my list as well once the world goes back to normal. John McCombs, everyone, thank you again so much for coming on. Please check out his stuff. He is a super funny guy, and also a pleasure to have on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Well, you know where to find us at the Tonic Accord, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think about anything regarding politics, comedy, how they intersect. Let us know your thoughts. And as always, stay tuned for next week's episodes. Take care, everyone, and have a good night.